Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you've had an enjoyable lunch break as we move into the final afternoon of the MSVR Silverstone shootout here on the Silverstone National Circuit. And we have got a lot of racing to look forward to this afternoon. Kicking off, first of all, with the Club MSV Trackday Trophy. The cars taking to the grid now in advance of their 45-minute race. And then we've got racing from the Mark II Golf GTI Championship, 2 races from the Suncross Electronics Mono 2000s and Mono Classics, and action from the GT Cup Championship, F3 Cup, Marangoni Tyres Production BMW Championship, Super Pro VAG Trophy, and also the Mono 1800, 1600 and Moto Mono cars. A lot to look forward to, and the Club MSV Trackday Trophy cars coming to the grid, so we will give you how they're going to start the race. Page 50 of your programme is where you'll be able to enter in the grid, and if you've not had the opportunity to pick up a programme yet, strongly recommend that you do. They're available for sale on the first floor of the race control building, which is at the Woodcote end of the pit lane, and page 50 is where you will find the entry for the Club MSV Trackday Trophy, which lines up as follows, with in pole position number 80 Dennis and Welsh, and alongside them number 12 Simon Barnard. So row 1 is 80 and 12. Row 2 is 89 Lee McCormack and 59, and that is Ball and Walker. So 89, or is that 88 or 89? The 88, apologies, Lee McCormack. So row 2 is 88 Lee McCormack and 59 Ball and Walker. Row 3 of the grid is number 14 Dan Adams and 35 Henry Curtis. So 14 and 35. Row 4 of the grid is Martin Anditch, number 15 and 39 Darren Goes, 15 and 39. Row 5 of the grid is number 21 Broad and Jackson Moore, and 96 Adam Rogers, 21 and 96. Row 6 of the grid is number 48 Wright and Hogg, and 4 Ray Honeybones, so 48 and 4. Row 7 of the grid is 53 Priest and Reed, and 20 Pickering and Meeks, 53 and 20. Row 8 of the grid is 55, which is Jones and Jones, and 46 Jordan and Jordan, so 55 and 46. Row 9 of the grid is 37, which is the Vines, and 32 Frank Frostick, 37 and 32. Row 10 of the grid is 87 Talbot and Hutton, and 58 Slater and Stacey, 87 and 58. Row 11 of the grid is 57 Huxley and Richards, and 63 the Brentons, so 57 and 63. Row 12 of the grid is 54 Worley and Obey, and 38 again the Joneses, so 54 and 38. Row 13 of the grid is 34 James Barnes, 33 James Barnes, and 98 Norman and Summers, so 33 and 98. Row 14 of the grid is 34 Witherington and Angrave, and 86 Roberts and Chambers, 34 and 86. Row 15 of the grid is 74 Warren Hales, and 68 Lloyd Chafer, 74 and 68. Row 16 of the grid is 23, which is the Harbours, and 97 Stefano Draper, 23 and 97. And then the back row of the grid is 44, which is the Chaplains, and number 70 Cox and Bevis, so 44 and 70. It's a 45-minute race. There is no formation lap for the Club MSV Trackday Trophy, and the cars all lined up on the grid, all ready for the start of what promises to be a thoroughly entertaining race. The Club MSV Trackday Trophy, designed as the ideal series really for drivers to take their first steps in car racing, having come up through the Club MSV Trackday route. The 30-second board is shown to the drivers now, so this afternoon's action about to get underway very shortly. Front row of the grid, then we've got the silver number 80 Peugeot 205, and alongside the Dennis and Welsh car is Simon Barnard. That is the blue BMW. The rest of the field, a wide array of machinery lined up behind as the red lights are on. Out they go, and who's got the jump from the line as the field surge away on towards Copse Corner for the first time asking. It's a brilliant start, in fact, from Lee McCormack from the second row, and it's McCormack who leads into Copse Corner. The rest of the field pile through as the race leaders head up to Beckett's and Jack Nicholls for the first time this afternoon.
Yep, here they come. So Lee McCormack, we think it is, in the 88 car, who's going to hold the lead on the run down into Beckett's. The first three have become fairly spread out straight away. It's actually Dennis and Welsh who have held pole. McCormack into second place, and contact further back. The 59 car is sent spinning, so Ball and Walker sent spinning by the Clio of a long way back. Actually, that Clio has come from the Broad and Jackson Moore Clio. Far too late on the brakes, clouted the Porsche. The Porsche spun around. Oh, and the fire tender car has to take avoiding action because the 48 car of Wright and Hogg rejoined the circuit. They've all rejoined the race. Got a bit of debris down here on the circuit,
and sorry, Jack, the race leader's gone wide at Brooklands, and so it's now Lee McCormack who's back in to lead the race as the Dennis and Welsh car runs wide, and so the switch to the lead, it's the Subaru that leads into Woodcote for the first time of asking, with then the race leaders having just outbraked themselves through Brooklands. So it is the number 88 car that leads it from the 80 car, and then into third place, number 12 is Barnard, fourth is number 14, fifth place is 35 car of Curtis, and Darren goes in number 39, rounding out the top six. The field already spreading out the leaders back up to Beckett's.
Yeah, here they come, where there is a large piece of Clio bumper, kind of nowhere near the apex really, so we should be fine. The slippery surface flag is being shown to let drivers know that there is debris on the circuit. There's also a stationary yellow, but I would suggest that the 20 car has just made an overtake in there. Who was that? It's the little Pickering and Meeks machine. So they gained up a couple of positions whilst the stationary yellow was out. So that probably wasn't great from them.
No, so it could be that the Meeks shall inherit a 5-second penalty if that has been reported later in the race. As at the head of the field, the battle between the leaders close up. We've got another car that's gone off at Brooklands. It's the Lotus Elise, which has come to a smoky halt just on the edge of the corner, and that is going to require some recovery because it doesn't seem too keen to get moving of its own accord. The driver actually waving his arms, requesting assistance. And so already it's been a very active start to the race. It's Stephen Vine in the number 37 Pest Racing Lotus Elise who's in trouble.
So here we go. It's very, very close for the lead, isn't it, as they come down into Beckett's then. And there's maybe only a car length separating the two machines. And then up in third position we've got the 12 car, which is a very impressive start, you have to say, for Simon Barnard in his M3, up into third position. The rest of the field streaming through, no more contacts down here, and no real battles kicking off just yet, so I think it's the lead two that are closest on the circuit.
And the marshals scattering at Brooklands as the leaders turn through at a much, much reduced pace. They've all seen the wave yellow flag, and actually Lee McCormack has backed off so much that the field is now one continuous stream through Brooklands. Some of the midfield coming in at a somewhat higher speed. Marshall's doing a very brave job, and now McCormack only pulls the pin as he exits Luffield, so he's probably brought the first 6 cars into continuous train behind him. And who is that going to give an opening to? Possibly the 14 car of Dan Adams in the Porsche. Adams just looking to try and move himself up into third. It's going to be very tight as well through Cots, because it appeared as if Simon Barnard was also trying to pick his way past number 80 Peugeot.
Wow, look at this. Yeah, it's a real queue, isn't it? They'd all spread out beforehand, but now we've got the two race leaders together, and then we've got side by side. Holding on to the inside is the 12 car. Dan Adams going in very, very deep on the brakes. They all stay in their respective positions, but actually it could well be that Simon Barnard's got a pretty good run. Simon Barnard might be challenging for second position, actually. He might be challenging Dennis and Welch as they come under the bridge this time and into the left-hander at Brooklands.
Okay, let's see if he's able to find an opening into the left-hander at Brooklands. No, not quite. So they are as they were at the end of the last lap, with this continuous train of cars, and very much acting as the cork in the bottle here is Lee McCormack. The new orange wing mirrors he painted over the winter, the only modification he's done on the car, not thus working too brilliantly for him as yet, other than he's having to use them a great deal as this train of cars begins to form up behind him. Simon Barnard is looking pretty feisty, as you'd have to say, as Henry Curtis in the black 205, as Barnard looks the inside of, again, the Dennis and Welsh car, turning through Copse Corner and accelerating up towards Beckett's.
The yellow flag is now in down here, so overtaking is more than acceptable down here in Beckett's. In fact, I actively encourage it, but at the moment we're not getting any movement. That Peugeot is so quick through the corners, but it's just going to lose out in the straights to Lee McCormack. And I think it's through the slower part of the circuit that you see McCormack really back them up, because through the corners it may not be as quick, but when it comes to me and leaves me on the long straights, it seems to have a reasonable advantage.
Okay, so Lee McCormack is now in second place. Dennis and Welsh go through at Brooklands. Everybody fans out for position. Darren Goes also somehow squeezed past Dan Adams. We've got plenty of angles of attack further back. I think it's Ray Honeybone, the number 4 car, who came in with brake smoke pouring out from the tyres. And again, Adams looks to fight back on Darren Goes in the Audi, who has been stout in his defence since having gained that place. They've got already a back marker that they all pile through as they turn through Copse Corner. Everybody seems to be cleanly there, but really we've probably got the first 12 cars covered by less than 10 seconds. The first 10 of them, though, just 4.6 seconds between them all. Yeah,
this is pretty good racing, it has to be said. The Audi has now made his way past Henry Curtis, so that's a good move. And Dennis and Welsh now, you think now they've got some clear air, they might begin to just stretch their legs a little bit. They've got maybe 10 car lengths back to Lee McCormack, so I think McCormack may still act as the bottleneck behind, because Dennis and Welsh, let's not forget, in qualifying, 1.4 seconds clear than the BMW of Simon Barnard.
Again, unfortunately we don't know which of which of Dennis and Welsh is in that car at the moment. We do for some of them, as the Ginetta a little bit further back almost goes around at Brooklands. He then somehow scrabbles back onto the track at Luffield and rejoins. All the while, the number 80 car is pulling well clear of Simon Barnard, who is in second. Up into third has come Darren Goes, so Lee McCormack being shuffled down the order, and pretty much every corner is turning into a bit of a sort out here as the Audi of Darren Goes, certainly at this stage the race, is looking very assertive indeed, turning through Copse Corner, accelerating on towards Beckett's, and we could see the challenge by the time they reach Beckett's. And we've got waved yellow flags at Copse, which would suggest somebody in that group's come a cropper as well.
Yeah, the Audi was challenging to the outside, couldn't quite find the way to get around Simon Barnard, so no one leaps out as being missing from this front pack, unless I am I may well be mistaken, but from what I can tell, there doesn't appear to be anyone missing. But the Audi is looking up the inside for second position, and I would hazard a guess that you will have an Audi in second place while they reach you.
Yes, we do. So Darren Goes, gains the place, moves up into second place. Simon Barnard is all over his tail, though, trying to fight back. Lee McCormack also in the mix, and working his way onto the tail of that group as well is Martin Anandich in the clear. So we've got really second through to seventh still in the continuous train. It's enabling the 80 car just to try and build out a little bit of a buffer. We still have waved yellow flags at Copse Corner, so hopefully they will all have seen that and respond to it. The car that has... I'm just waiting to see which car it is that's possibly gone missing. It wasn't, in fact, one of the front runners, so it was somebody a little bit lower down the order. The leaders already up towards Beckett's.
Yes, they are, and... well, we appear to... Oh, that's very, very late on the brakes from the 35 car of Henry Curtis. He manages to... well, no, he doesn't get it stopped in time. Runs onto the grass on the outside. But, Ben, I'm looking around and I can't see the Audi coming through again. So there it is, the 39 car, all the way down in probably 10th or 11th position, Darren Goes.
Yeah, and that was a moment under the waved yellow flag at Copse, so he may well have a little bit of explaining to do after the event. They've clearly had some sort of sort out, because there's other cars, and Lee McCormack is ailing as well. McCormack is indicating that he will be peeling off into the pit lane at the end of this lap, so the Subaru in trouble as well. So this a dramatic opening to the Club MSV Trackday Trophy. Dennis and Welsh lead it in car 80. In second place is Simon Barnard in car 12. Third place is now the number 14 car of Dan Adams. With it up to fourth place, number 15, Martin Anandich. Into the pit lane comes Lee McCormack, and Darren Goes is some way down the order. He's just up onto the tail of the number 87 Alfa Romeo at the moment, the Soda Racing car. So
the race leaders are coming through Beckett's. It's difficult to work out which are the race leaders and which are the back markers at the moment. You'll also have a pretty smoky Clio coming up towards you before too long. Andrew Broad, who was involved in that first lap accident, I think should probably pull into the pits because he was smoking very heavily up here.
Yeah, it's according to the information we've got, this Will Jackson Moore, we think, who is starting the car. And yes, it's not smoking past us, but the Clio not looking too happy. as we still got waved yellow flags out at Copse Corner. We have now got a challenge for third place as well through Luffield, and it is emerging Dan Adams, who is in third in the Porsche. They're already into some of the traffic, and then the Nandich, who has got the 35 car of Henry Curtis fairly close onto his tail, and already they're into the back markers, which is turning this race on its head already. We're still a little bit away from the pit window opening. Yellow flags remain at Copse Corner. They just go in now, and it is a JCB, I think, possibly just on the exit, that's rescuing somebody.
Yeah, I can see the JCB. I can't see much more than that due to my lack of height, but through Beckett's then they come, and it's starting to settle down a little bit. Henry Curtis, after that lurid braking session at Beckett's a lap ago, has got it all together again, but he is now in fourth position. We've also got, no, actually I think that's just a back marker being dispensed off further back, so it's all just starting to settle down, but I wouldn't be surprised if it all kicks off again, especially when we get the second drivers getting into the cars.
Yeah, and Will Jackson Moore has decided enough's enough, and the battle-scarred Clio peels into the pit lane, although his ability to drive 3 or 4 laps with the car in that state probably qualifies him quite well for the Clio Cup, as the race leader is now being caught here by Simon Barnard. So the number 80 car was previously 2 seconds ahead. It's now down to just 1.2 seconds the advantage. So Barnard in the BMW beginning to close in on the race leader, then Adams a further 1.5 seconds back, and then a similar gap to Curtis and the Nandich, rounding out the top 5 with Ray Honeybone up to 6th place.
So down into Brooklands comes the 80 machine, and yeah, the gap is noticeably coming down, isn't it? Simon Barnard starting to get into a bit of a rhythm. Mark Nanadic is having a bit of a fairly lonely race at the moment in 5th place. He's not really able to make any inroads on Henry Curtis in front of him. Bit of a lock-up for the Talbot Hutton car coming down the Alpha, coming down into Brooklands, Beckett's, but nothing particularly notable really. So I think it is going to be that battle for the lead that's going to be the one to keep an eye on.
And it's coming together very nicely as they turn through Luffield. There's now little to choose between them, and Simon Barnard is just beginning to put the pressure on here. The Barnard Racing team, a family operation. It's Dad Peter who prepares the car and acts as chief mechanic, and then Simon does the driving bit. At the moment, that's working out very nicely for him as he tucks into the slipstream, such as it is, behind a little Peugeot. Thinks about it, looking to the inside into Copse Corner. Doesn't quite work out, but that may have actually just pushed him fractionally offline as they accelerate on towards Beckett's.
Here they come down towards Beckett's. There's a Mazda MX-5 in the mix as well, so I think that's going to hamper Simon Barnard this time around. Yeah, he's unable to get past, so the little Mazda creates a gap of maybe up to a second now between our first 2 runners in this race. So back markers, as we thought, bit of an issue, but nothing too serious, but I think it's just put back Simon Barnard's challenge for a lap or 2.
Yes, and we are a third of the way through the race with 30 minutes remaining, and Simon Barnard already beginning to try and close back in on to the little Peugeot. We've also got still Dan Adams in 3rd place in the Porsche, who should not be discounted because he is circulating at broadly the same pace as the leading duo, and therefore is still very much in the mix as they are on to complete now the 12th lap of the race. And the gap between the leaders is still under a second, just 0.7 of a second. So although Barnard lost some of that time, he is already sitting about gaining it back through Copse Corner. The Peugeot gains mid-apex, but then the BMW's just got the power to draw up onto its tail along the short straight into Beckett's.
Yeah, the Porsche isn't too far away at all, is it actually? It's pretty much, well... Oh, yellow flag going out. What's that for? Oh, unfortunately we've got the Ford pulled off down here, so the early 2000s British touring car tribute livery of the number 34 Ford has unfortunately retired, so Mark Witherington and Charles Angrave see their race end in what looks like mechanical failure down here at
gone to
Beckett's.
quick fit, shouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly, not rapid fit, which is obviously on the side of the cars. So race over for them, it seems, unfortunately, and I don't know if they're going to move that car or just leave it where it is. It's in a fairly inoffensive position, so it'll probably be fun.
The leaders on through another lap completed. The pit lane is now open, so the pit window is open, so the drivers can elect to take their pit stop as and when they choose. And Simon Barnard, you would wonder whether there's any advantage of him pitting in early, and then that will release him from following around behind the 80 car, because Barnard is consistently lap on lap quicker than the race leading car, but he's getting to the stage now where if he can't find his way past it, he is going to lose time tucked up behind him. So we've got also a 5-second penalty that has come out to Darren Goes for exceeding the track limits. The first of potentially many this week. I think the pit lane marshal or the start line marshal is going to have very, very strong biceps by the end of this weekend, the number of penalty boards that they have been holding out. Waiting for the race leaders to turn into Brooklands, and there's been a change for the lead. Simon Barnard has got through. He takes lead the race away from the little Peugeot, although the Peugeot tries to fight back around the outside at Luffield. That's audacious if it is going to work out for him, and they're going to have the drag race through Woodcote, but the shorter line through means that Barnard should prevail, although then the Peugeot draws alongside again. They're still side by side. They have been for about 300 metres now into Copse Corner. Who's going to have the better of it? It's Barnard to the inside, but still the Peugeot tries around the outside.
He's not letting him go, is he? That's strange, because there wasn't... Oh, we've got a spinner down here at Beckett, so any overtaking cannot happen. Barnard it is who holds the advantage then still. This has played right into the hands, actually, of the Porsche, because all of a sudden, from being a kind of, watching spectator, Dan Adams is now right with this battle as they head up the Wellington Straight. It's they weren't that close as they left my sight, really, a lap or two ago, so it must have been that BMW power that pulled it alongside in the latter edges of the Wellington Straight and got the move done into Brooklands, as that is where they are now.
They are, and Barnard gets his braking slightly wrong, runs a little bit wide, but it's Dan Adams in third place who is going to be the man to watch it, because Adams is trying to close on to tail leaders, and again the Peugeot tries around the outside of Barnard going through Luffield. This time he is unable to draw alongside, so he has to content himself with settling in behind the BMW, accelerating along the start and finish straight with then the 14 car of Adams really not too far back at all into Copse Corner, and Barnard's caught a back marker in the worst possible place, and there could well be a switch to the lead here, Jack, as they come up towards you at Beckett's.
Let's have a little look. It's almost side by side, and I'm just trying to pick out. No, Barnard has managed to get through, and the Porsche actually has managed to get past, so Dan Adams has managed to get past the Dennis Welsh. So it's the BMW who leads, the Porsche who is second, and the Peugeot that is third. So that's how things have transpired at Copse. Obviously, neither you or I can really see exactly what happened, but all of a sudden, Simon Barnard now has a considerably greater margin up at the front.
Certainly didn't seem as how it was going to pan out when they turned into Copse. So the long-time race leader now down into third place, but back to its usual tricks, which is trying around the outside at Luffield. This time it's Dan Adams who is going to be having to look into his mirrors to see where little Peugeot is, and Adams taking no chances, using all of the road a little bit more, and out across the curbs. None of these front runners have peeled into the pit lane. The first of the front runners who are in is Team Bacon Butty Racing. Andrew Ball, we understand, started the race, so it's going to be Adrian Walker who will take over, with Richard Hughes being replaced by Adrian Walker for this weekend. So Adrian Walker should take over from that car. Also, Martin Nandic is in the pit lane. In fact, I think it was Nandic who was in, and the Ball and Walker car still out on track. So yes, Nandic it is in number 15 who's elected to pit in early.
Dan Adams trying to go around the outside of a back marking Clio. That could play into the hands of the Dennis and Welch Peugeot, because it's compromised him going into the corner, which could give the Peugeot the advantage. It's going to be very, very close. Looking a little bit to the inside of the Porsche into Brooklands, I'd be impressed if he manages to make it through, but he could be challenging into Luffield again.
Okay, let's see if he can do it. Yes, he's not close enough into Brooklands, but then the Peugeot punches above its weight in terms of corner speed, and not really quite close enough to go for the outside run around Dan Adams in the Porsche, so he thinks better of it. We are coming up to half race distance, so we can expect the pit lane very shortly to come alive with various drivers peeling in for their mandatory pit stops. The bulk of the leading group not in as yet, with up into fourth place now is the 59 car of Adrian Ball. And it was Ball, wasn't it, who was involved in that first lap incident, if I recall.
Yes, correct.
He's done very well to come up through the field and has just set the fastest lap, Jack, 2 seconds faster than the cars ahead of him.
Crikey, good effort from him. He was the one who got punted off mercilessly by the Clio. We had another little Clio incident down here at Beckett's a few moments ago. Stefano Draper losing it all by himself under braking for Brooklands. He's now resumed and poodled on off the road again.
So it wasn't curtains for Draper then?
No. No, it wasn't. He is continuing. Second and third place are also still going into Brooklands now, and the Peugeot still not close enough, but you feel it has more outright pace, but it's just unable to get it past.
He's got a chance to here, actually, because the back marker as peeling into the pit lane is Dan Adams, who got a terrible run through Luffield, and the Peugeot was able to get around the outside. It was because they were caught up behind one of the cars towards the rear of the field. They were putting a lap on, and so Adams has had quite a poor in lap, all things considered, unfortunately. So he is peeling into the pit lane. That also into the pit lane as well. We've got the 59 car, so the Stirring drive up through the order from Andrew Ball results in him peeling into pit lane, as does Henry Curtis, so he takes the opportunity to make his pit stop as well. So now the race is in flux a little bit as we await the outcome of all of these pit stops, and now for some of the single driver entries, this is the opportunity with the track slightly less crowded than it was earlier on to actually go to work and put in some quick laps. The other car to watch for, of course, is going to be Andrew Nanandic, who was an early pitter, and he is out on track and trying to string some good times together.
By the same token, if we remember, Dennis and Welsh, the second driver, ended up lapping kind of 3 seconds or so slower than the first driver, who set the pole position time. Now, depending on which driver it was who started the race, etc., we couldn't see this Peugeot either go remarkably quicker or remarkably slower, depending on which driver is getting in the car next.
Yes, that is a very good point. So I would suspect it's probably Robin Welsh at the wheel of the car at the moment, and Robin isn't the novice driver because he races as well in the Marangoni Tyres Production BMW Championship, so I suspect it's probably Robin Welsh at the wheel at the moment, in which case when Jason Dennis takes over, that car may be a little bit slower, as still Barnard and Welsh continue to pound around at the head of the field, and are going to leave it a little bit later into this race to make their pit stop, the pit window open for another 5 or so minutes. So they've got ample opportunity to make their pit stop, and you'd have to argue against them doing it at the moment, wouldn't you? Because they're actually in relatively clear air out on track. Out of Luffield comes the race leader, Simon Barnard, but the Peugeot is going to peel into the pit lane. So into the pit lane goes Robin Welsh in the Peugeot, and Simon Barnard continues on his way.
I mean, you would say if this were, the British GT Championship, you'd leave your quickest driver out there for as long as is humanly possible, but ultimately this isn't it's not about the competition as much, is it? So you're not going to, if you're slower than your partner, you probably don't think that's a reason why he should get more driving time in the race. So it's a different approach being taken here than would be taken in the GT Championship or something like that.
Except to say that whenever you're in with a sniff of a race win, you'll do whatever it takes to win it, and ultimately, if that means doing a couple of laps less, then that is an option to go down. So that the order is somewhat shuffled at the moment as we're waiting for these drivers to make their pit stop and then get back out on track. And I think it's Dan Adams who is probably going to be, of the drivers who's had their pit stop, the most elevated up the order. Yes, he is. He's in 15th position. So watch for the pace of the number 14 Porsche, because he could still snatch the lead here. Simon Barnard is going to go for another lap without making his pit stop. Ray Honeybone is also yet to pit in the number 4 car.
Crucially, that 14 Porsche of Dan Adams has quite a lot of clear air ahead of him. Not many cars for him to lap, if any. In fact, the only guy in front of him is the 59 Porsche that we know has been lapping particularly quickly already today. So this could be looking good for Dan Adams.
I tend to agree with you there, Jack, because as a result of those pit stops, if you think that he was running, broadly speaking, alongside Henry Curtis, well, Henry Curtis has rejoined some 25 seconds further back down the road than Dan Adams was running, so it was clearly a very productive pit stop for Dan Adams, and he has got clear track ahead of him. So Adams in the bright red number 14 Porsche accelerates through Woodcote, crosses the line now, and has done a lap time of a 1 minute 9.932, and that's exactly right. With regards to that clear air, he's the quickest car on track at the moment, although running just behind him on the road, the other car to look for is going to be Mark Nanandich in the Renault Clio. So the 14 and 15 cars, they have both pitted. They're running, broadly speaking, together, and now they are really racing Simon Barnard, who's yet to make his pit stop.
Yep, that's very true indeed. And also, interestingly, I mean, obviously I can't quite see the timing screens. There's Simon Barnard coming through, but the 80 car of Dennis and Welsh is just in front of them up the road, I believe.
Yes, at quite an inopportune angle as well, going through our field. So we'll see once that car gets up to speed who was at the wheel. I guessed it was Robin Welsh because the car was performing very well. At the same time, it's looking pretty lively anyway, so it might be Robin Welsh who is now behind the wheel. That is an outlap completed for them, and they've actually been able to emerge ahead of Adams and Nanandich. So of the cars that have pitted, it's Dennis and Welsh which is the foremost, then it's the 59 car of Ball and Walker, then it's the 14 car of Adams, and then it's the 15 car of Nanandich. So 80, 59, 14 and 15, that is the top running order of the cars that have pitted.
Well, as we've already said, that has to be very, very impressive indeed from the 59 car of Ball and Walker, because as I mentioned, they got absolutely taken out down here at Beckett's on the opening lap. They probably dropped down to maybe 10th or 11th, 12th position, somewhere in that region. So to have battled back up to second place, and depending on where Simon Barnard emerges, you know, either second or third position, definitely a podium slot, whatever happens at this present time. Anyway, with what about 20 minutes remaining of this race?
17 minutes.
17,
yeah.
Doesn't time fly?
It really does. And now Barnard has decided to make his pit stop. Just looking for... Well, Dennis and Welsh are through. Ball and Walker in the 59 car in hot pursuit there, 4.7 seconds back. And then Adams a further 5 seconds back from there. So it could well be actually Robin Welsh who's at the wheel of the Peugeot, because that car has just done its best lap of the race, so 1 minute 8.725, and that's the car's first lap after the pit stops. Yeah,
that's an impressive lap time, isn't it? So it looks like it may well have been Robin Welsh who has taken over that machine now. So with Simon Barnard in the pits, this is going to be interesting to see what kind of gap he has been able to build up. And I'm imagining it's taking kind of just over a lap-ish to make a pit stop, something like that, because it's a very short lap here at on the Silverstone National Circuit. So it can't be long before Simon Barnard is getting ready to depart.
Yes, we will find out in due course when Barnard re-emerges into the action. All the while, the little Peugeot continues its efforts. What sort of lap time will we see this time around? Across the line, the car goes a 1 minute 10.249, so a slightly slower lap. And the 59 Porsche, the bright red Porsche that's in pursuit, is also in fine form. We've got a problem, have we, for Adams, though, unfortunately. Dan Adams is touring in the other red Porsche, the number 14 car. So Adams is touring. That's a great shame. And he is, unfortunately, going to be peeling into the pit lane. His race, to all intents and purposes, at an end.
Yep, that is a real shame. So Adams pulling into the pits out of this race after a very strong performance. Can you see the pit lane from where you are, Ben, or will I be the first to see Simon Barnard?
You will be the first to see where Simon Barnard re-emerges
very well
into the action. I believe he's out there at the moment, so he could... Where has Simon Barnard come out on track? Find out in due course. All the while, we have got the 80 Peugeot through to complete another lap. And how does this lap time compare for the number 80 car? Across the line it comes of Dennis and Welsh, a 1 minute 8.996. So the pace has been increased once more by Robin Welsh, and Barnard yet to come through here, so he's actually slipping down the order now.
Well,
has he come?
I haven't seen him here. I have to say, Ben, I haven't seen him here, I don't think.
No, he's showing us having come past us once. I'm looking to cops. There's no yellow flag, so this suddenly isn't looking too good for Simon Barnard, because he should have been out by now and he should have been in a competitive position. He's not, so it is going to be Robin Welsh who takes the lead of the race here, and Welsh is pulling away all the while from the 59 Team Bacon Butty Racing Porsche. Adrian Walker at the wheel of that, and slipping back all the while by about 2 seconds a lap. The pit window is closed. We've got 13.5 minutes remaining, and a lurid spin from somebody at Brooklands. They should rejoin though without too many concerns.
So a missing Simon Barnard means that the 80 car of Robin Welsh is now into the lead of this race, and yeah, it's a curious one, because I can't see him down here. There are no yellow flags at Copse. You can't see him up at Brooklands or Luffield, so it's a very, very curious one indeed, where exactly he has gone. But here comes our race leader then, into Beckett's. Robin Welsh performing very strongly, using all the dust on the inside of the corner. So then the 59 car of Ball and Walker is in second position, you're saying. So that would, who's that going to promote to third place? The 15 car of Mark Nenadic?
That is exactly right, yeah. Right. Mark Nenadic is there in 15th. What he's going to have to watch in third, what he's going to have to watch though is Darren Goes in the Audi, has got the bit between his teeth, and on adjusted time he's 20 seconds back down the road. In reality that means he's 15 seconds back from Nenadic, but he's lapping 3 seconds a lap quicker, and with 12 minutes to go he has got ample opportunity to get through and extend an advantage of over 5 seconds.
Right, well he's just exited Beckett's now and is heading down the Wellington Straight, so yeah, it's going to be a tall order for Mark for the Audi, but not an impossible one by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, here comes Nenadic in the blue and orange Clio, number 15. So that is one car to watch. Then you've got the immaculately presented Audi of Darren Goes. Nenadic has done a 1 minute 11.286. Here comes the Audi of Darren Goes, accelerating on through Woodcote Corner and over the timing beam, and his lap time is a 1 minute 9.732, so he brings the gap down by 2 seconds, and that is certainly on the cards between now and the end of the race. He's going to have to keep his momentum up. He's going to have a good run through the traffic, but all things being equal, there could be a podium in this for Darren Goes.
And the positive is for Darren is that he doesn't actually have to make an overtaking manoeuvre. I think that's kind of the key, isn't it? Because as we've seen many times today and many times throughout the history of motorsport, it's very much one thing to be quicker than someone and catch them, but to actually find a way past is the difficult part. So if that part isn't quite as important, that'll play in Darren's favour.
Yeah, he's still going to have to get past Martin Nenadic. The problem he's got, though, is when he gets past, he's going to have to pull out 5 seconds on him as well.
Oh, sorry, he's got the 5-second penalty. Right,
so
I
Darren
apologise.
Goes with the 5-second penalty.
Right, got it.
So although on time the gap is 18 seconds, in reality on the track it's about 12 or so seconds. All the while we should keep seeing the progress of Robin Welsh. He is the fastest car on the circuit by quite some margin of 1:08.461. Right, this time round Nenadic has had the hurry up and has matched the lap time of Darren Goes from last time, and that challenge has now been temporarily thwarted, the gap remaining consistent on this occasion. So Nenadic maybe getting the word from the pit wall saying, come on, you need to just up your pace a little bit. He's done that, and if he can manage the gap, that will work in his favour. There is also a glimmer of possibility with 10 minutes left in the race that Nenadic, if he can run at that pace, will actually begin to reel in Adrian Walker in the second place Porsche as well.
Yes, indeed. So it's all still to play for in the remaining 10 minutes or so in this Club MSV Trackday Trophy race. which has provided plenty of entertainment, plenty of drama as well. Coming through now is the 35 car of Henry Curtis that was performing very, very strong earlier on, not running quite as high as it once did. In fact, it made a move for second position very early on in the race before locking up and going on here at Beckett's, but still a decent performance from Henry Curtis. Here comes the 59 Porsche then, currently our second place driver, and I'm looking at the kind of visible gap back to Mark Nenadic, and it does seem a large gap, as you say, but if Nenadic can keep his pace up, there's every possibility, but of course with every passing lap the clock runs down a little bit more, and the Audi is coming towards me now, and Darren Goes he doesn't have much traffic on this lap actually, so he might be able to put in a good one.
Yeah, it is going to be an issue with the traffic as well. A black and white warning flag has gone out now to Robin Welsh for track limits infringements, so that again is going to be something he needs to manage, although his advantage is some 15 seconds, so it's not a disaster. Picking its way through the traffic though is Adrian Wright. Now there's a group of about 5 cars between Wright and the second place car of Nenadic, the third place car of Nenadic, as spinning in front of Darren Goes, or almost spinning, was the Toyota, and that has badly hurt the lap time for the Audi, because he just had to jump on the anchors to avoid T-boning the car in front of him, which has already had one spin at Brooklands. So another moment for the 38 machine, unfortunately, and that is Racing with Prestige, Tony Jones and Jason Jones, who have deterred Darren Goes on that last lap. And yes, Goes lost 2 seconds on that last lap. The gap though is definitely between Adrian Walker and Martin Nenadic, because that gap has come down now to just 11 seconds, 7.5 minutes left on the clock. We've also got the drive-through penalty for car 20, but really we could potentially see any number of changes for second, third and fourth if those gaps continue to fluctuate. They currently are.
Yeah, that's very interesting, isn't it? So a drive-through penalty for Pickering and Meeks in their Ginetta G20. Any news what that's for? That could well be for that overtake under yellow that I spotted earlier on, perhaps.
It's actually for a short pit stop.
Oh, okay.
So yes, any number of offences. And the Joneses in the Toyota have again got Brooklands completely wrong. They're approaching it more like it's at one of the time of track drift events, coming in sideways, planting the right foot and trying to power out of it. At least they keep the car pointing in the right direction. Darren Goes across the line again, back into the 1-minute 9s, and the problem for him is Martin Nenadic is also circulating the 1-minute 9s. What it really means though is that Nenadic is closing in on Adrian Walker at about a second a lap, 7 minutes remaining. He's going to need a couple of bad laps for Walker, but if that happens and Nenadic can keep going at the same sort of pace, then he could snatch second between now and the checkered flag.
So Adrian Walker, I think, is just going through Brooklands, and Nenadic is on his way down there now. As you say, I think it is too late for the Audi of Darren Goes. I don't think he's quite going to have enough pace now that Nenadic has got the hurry up, but that second place battle, which is probably coming past you now, is certainly getting closer.
It certainly is. So across the line now has gone Adrian Walker, and he has in turn upped his pace as well. A 1-minute 9.869, taking advantage of reasonably clear track. Here comes Nenadic in pursuit in the Clio over the line. He comes, and it's a slower lap from Nenadic. The gap goes back out again to 11.7 seconds, with then Darren Goes now possibly in a position to capitalise in the chase for third place, and he does a 1-minute 10.1, so that gap comes down a little bit, but 18 seconds is never going to whittle away in the remaining 5 minutes of the race. Robin Welsh all the while turns through Luffield. He's about to complete his 32nd lap.
Yeah, been a very strong performance from Robin Welsh as Nenadic exits up the Wellington Straight, and Darren Goes is struggling with traffic a little bit at the moment. He tries to find the inside line to get past the 57 car of Huxley and Richards, and he's just about going to manage it going down the Wellington Straight. So yeah, I think things have kind of settled down a little bit now. We had the potential of a bit of movement here and there, but with not long left in this race, it's looking more and more likely that the podium positions are going to stay as they are, I think.
I tend to agree with you. The the clock is ticking down. What we haven't had is any combination really that's been able to string together a series of successive laps at sort of a second or so a lap quicker than the car ahead of them. Again, the Joneses in the number 38 so to get Brooklands wrong. That's 4 laps in a row they've been sliding the rear of the car. If nothing else, they're enjoying themselves. And that car is probably worth watching at Beckett's, whether it attempts to do something not dissimilar. So we've got just about 4.5 minutes remaining. Robin Welsh and Jason Dennis leading the race by almost 20 seconds now in the Peugeot 205.
Through comes the Audi. I'm actually just keeping an eye out for the MR2. Here it comes. The red machine with the white stripes on it. Very late on the brakes. Not particularly sideways, unfortunately, down here. It looks like he's saving all his party tricks for you up at Brooklands, Ben, because that was fairly neat down here, neat and tidy.
Oh, let's see what he does into Brooklands this time. The marshals wait with bated breath, yellow flags poised at the ready, as Nadadic on to complete another lap. His chase, unfortunately, looks like it's going to come to nothing. Is the third? Here he comes. No, that's disappointingly sedate. That looks more textbook from the Toyota on this occasion, and actually very neat, and therefore he gains on the car ahead of him. The leading group all now relatively settled, you would have to say. So it's going to be the race win almost certainly for Jason Dennis and Robin Welsh. Second place, that's also the Class C leader, Ball and Walker, and then Class D is currently being led by the 58 car of Slater and Stacey, and then Class E we've got the Ben Roberts and John Chambers car leading that. They're currently in 19th position, and no likelihood actually of any changes for Class Lead really between now and the end of the race. They're all relatively settled with under 3 minutes remaining in this what's been a very dramatic Club MSV Trackday Trophy race. And the Mini Enduro format really does enable the race to breathe and different stories of the race to emerge. Well, Darren goes about to complete lap, and I think he could well view this as one that got away, couldn't he? Because but for those dramas earlier on, he was certainly running at podium pace.
Yeah, definitely. I think well, there's quite a few drivers that have ended up with a case of what could have been. I mean, let us not forget that Simon Barnard was we were all expecting to emerge in the lead of this race, but then he kind of disappeared. So there's a couple of drivers that can think that. It'll be very interesting to find out, just out of curiosity, what happened to Simon Barnard, because he appeared to leave the pits and then enter some form of Bermuda Triangle. So interesting to see what happened to him. But yeah, it's been there's been plenty going on, and it's been certainly action-packed.
We've got a, would you believe it, a 5-second penalty now to Robin Welsh for exceeding the track limits in car 80. That will give him absolutely no concern whatsoever, as he is 27 seconds clear in the lead of the race. And he could probably afford to do that again if he feels like it, with then Ball and Walker in second place, and then the Nadic still in third, circulating at broadly the same pace of the cars in front of and behind him, which is what he needs to be doing to hold on to that podium position. The race leader, Robin Welsh, exits Luffield now, accelerates into Woodcote, and this is to start the 37th and final lap of the race for Robin Welsh and Jason Dennis. It's really been a perfectly judged performance. Jason Dennis holding his own in the early stages, then Robin Welsh just absolutely putting his foot down in the second half of the race. Yeah,
it was good to see that that it was Jason Dennis taking that opening stint, because he was performing very impressively indeed. Here he comes into the right-hander at Beckett's. That little number 80 Peugeot is going to win the race in a few moments' time. Once he exits Beckett's, heads up towards the left-hander at Brooklands for the final time. And yeah, a very, very strong performance from them. They certainly setting their stall out early on to be one of the race win challengers. I doubt they expected to win this comfortably though, because they had all sorts of attentions from the likes of Ball and Walker, and also Simon Barnard, Dan Adams as well in the 14 Porsche, but it's going to be Jason Dennis and Robin Welsh who will end up victorious.
It will be. They exit Luffield for the final time, and barring an absolute disaster at Woodcote, this is going to be the victory here at Silverstone, the Club MSV Trackday Trophy. Across the line goes the Peugeot, and Jason Dennis and Robin Welsh claim the honours. We've then got a formation finish going on behind. About 8 cars cross the line pretty much simultaneously. But what about the second place car? Here it comes now into Brooklands, and Andrew Ball and Adrian Walker have done enough for Team Bacon Butty Racing. Well, they've certainly earned their bacon today, haven't they? Because they have driven a very steady and smooth race. They accelerate through Woodcote and claim second position, with then Martin Anadic into third place. He's gained on Ball and Walker in the closing lap, but not sufficiently, so it is third place for Martin Anadic, and then Darren goes in the Audi. A very strong 5th position for him. Ray Honeybone is in 6th. 5th place is the 53 car of Priest and Reed. Honeybone is 6th in car 4. 7th place is the 96 car of Rogers. 8th place is 35 Curtis. 9th is 48 Wright and Hogg. In 10th place is 20 Pickering and Meeks. In 11th place is 55 the Joneses. 12th place is 87 Talbot and Hutton. And then last but certainly not least with regards to taking the flag is the 58 car of Slater and Stacey, and they, as a result of that, win Class D. 13th overall. 14th place is 33 Barnes. 15th is 38 the Joneses. In 16th place 98 Norman and Summer. 17th place 63 Brenton and Brent. In 18th place 57 Huxley and Richards. 19th place is 87 and that 86, and that is the Roberts and Chambers Mazda, and they win Class E, and then rounding out the top 20 is number 46. So the class winners, car 80 of Dennis and Welsh winning Class B. Class C won by 59 Ball and Walker. Class D 58 Slater and Stacey, and Class E 86 Roberts and Chambers. So Jack heads down to the podium to greet some very happy drivers. We have got next up on track the second race of the weekend.